Hello, welcome back. I thought it would be fun to do a series of videos on getting rich using your knowledge of math. With some basic math concepts, you can actually get rich. But usually when you think about getting rich, you think about some sudden lottery or windfall or something, you get rich instantly. Actually, using math, more or less you get rich slowly. In other words, through constant application of a few really simple ideas and the concept of using time, putting time on your side, you can actually build wealth, but not usually rapidly overnight, usually slowly, but constantly building and building over time to get wherever it is you're trying to go. Now today I want to talk about buying a car because it's usually one of the biggest purchases that's early on in someone's life where you can get taken to the cleaners and overpay. I was taken to the cleaners and I want to talk to you about that. But just know that there are many ways to use math to get rich. And I want to try to cover them all in different videos. Now there's many ways to build wealth outside of things like making big purchases and doing better in those big purchases. You can get a higher paying job. Obviously that'll help you make more money. It's a little more difficult to do that than we would all like, but you can do that. You can learn to take the money that you have and try to spend it more efficiently. In other words, budget a little bit better. A lot of that comes down to recalibrating how you look at prices of things. And so I'm going to do a whole series of videos on that, budgeting and doing little mental calculations when you're walking around buying things to really see how tiny little purchases, like I'm guilty of getting my coffee almost every day, but if you skip one of those every now and then, that actually adds up to a lot of money, right? You can also take the money that you earn and learn how to invest it, right? And the concept of investing. And if you're uncomfortable with investing, even just putting it in an interest-bearing account over time can give you essentially free money. But if you also understand the power of compound interest in investing, then you can very slowly but surely build that money that you have over time into something that you will have down the road, building wealth through a snowball kind of effect, so to speak, using the power of math, because compound interest is all about math. So there are many directions to go as far as how to build wealth using your knowledge of math. And I'm going to try to cover them all. But today I want to talk about buying a car. For most people, it's the biggest purchase you will make when you're relatively young. And personally, I was taken to the cleaners on my first car purchase, and I want you to avoid that. So let me tell you a story. I was a young person and I went to go get my first car, right? And so I went into the dealership and I got absolutely ripped off. Looking back on it, the guy was so rude to me and condescending, called me a boy a few times, and basically I had no idea what I was doing and I had very little money anyway. And so, I just didn't understand any of it. I walked out of there with a car, and I was happy with the car, but I always felt like maybe I overpaid or whatever, but I moved on with my life. 6-7 years later, that car got into an accident. I had to go and get a second car, another car. And I was a little bit older. I was probably in my mid to late 20s at that point. And I went to a totally different car dealership. And once again, looking back on it, I felt kind of ripped off. At one point, I told the salesman that I didn't think I could afford the monthly payment on this car. And he looked at me and he said, well, wait a minute, you're a freshly minted engineering student. You can certainly afford this car. In other words, the guy was telling me what I could afford instead of listening to me about what I thought I could afford. And I was still, again, young. And of course, I wanted the car, so I got ripped off again. And I'm going to show you and tell you exactly how I got ripped off and how you can avoid it as we go through it here. But that was two really bad experiences separated by a few years. So fast forward many years in the future, and it was time for me to get a different vehicle. I maybe started a family at that point, needed a larger vehicle. And so I went and decided ahead of time to do some research. And so really trying to understand what is the best way to approach this. Also, I had some friends and people in my family that sold cars, so I really had some long conversations with them to understand the process and kind of like what to avoid. And so I was much better prepared for that next purchase experience. And I'm going to share with you, exactly how I did that there. But after I got out of there and I realized, okay, I did pretty good with that, And then people started asking me in my family, hey, can you come with me and kind of be the bad cop, while I purchased this car? So I did that. And actually, I found it was kind of fun. If you're not emotionally invested in trying to get this vehicle, you're just helping a friend out, then it's actually kind of fun to be the bad guy and say, well, you can't afford that. You can't do that. No, 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 you get to say all the time. And eventually that person, the person I went to the dealership with, was my sister-in-law. She got a fantastic deal on that vehicle because I was constantly telling the salesman on her behalf that she wasn't going to do that. And I had no emotional investment in the situation. Now, after that happened, I started getting calls from family and friends and, hey, what should I do? Can you come with me or whatever? And I dispensed much advice and went and helped other people. It turns out that in my short life, I've probably been involved indirectly in maybe 20 or 25 vehicle purchases through friends and family. So I'm not the world's expert on this, but I feel like I have a pretty good handle on it, and it's probably the easiest way you can save thousands of dollars in the first really large purchase of your life. And so that's what I want to cover today. And people ask me all the time, what is this math for? Why do we learn math? Well, this is a very, very good example of that. Mainly you use math for these kinds of purposes to not get ripped off, like I was ripped off. Now, the first thing you have to do, what I want you to do, is I'm going to give you a bunch of advice, and then I have another page that I wrote here, several pages, of a little more detailed stuff, and then I want to give you a numerical example of how it's really easy for you to be tricked into giving more money to these people than you have to. Because there's basically so many variables involved, it's very easy for them to turn one knob and then turn another knob a different way, and you think you're getting a great deal, and then they're actually getting more money out of you in the long run. Because none of us are human calculators. You can't do it on the fly here. But that is the goal there. They're trying to extract money out of you, and you're trying to not get your money extracted, right? So the first item on my bulleted list here is, I want you to change your mindset about buying a car. I want you to think of it as war. Now, in war, people actually kill each other. You're not trying to kill anybody, but basically it's you versus them. That's it. It is not, it's impersonal. He is not your friend. He or she is not your friend. They may try to be your friend, because that's actually the number one thing a salesman tries to do, is to be your friend. They know that if they can become your friend, then it's easier to get things done. Because we're humans and we like to be friendly and we like to be social and things like that. So the first thing that's going to happen when you walk into a dealership is they're going to try to get to know you. How are you? How many people are in your family? Where do you live? How long have you lived here? Where do you work? Oh, I've been here about 5 years. That's all fine and dandy, but when you walk in, I want you to put your armor on. It's like a bubble or a suit of armor, and it's like war. Anything he tells you just flies right out the other one. You don't have to be rude, okay? You don't have to be mean. He's just doing a job. Salesmen are not bad. There's many salesmen in my family. They are not bad, but they have a different goal than you. Even if they're being your friend, their job is to take as much money out of your pocket as possible while trying to make you feel okay with it or happy about it. So if it's small talk they're doing, engage in the small talk, but ultimately they are the opponent in this game of chess. All right, so you guys are opponents facing off. It's a game of mental fortitude there. The next thing I want to tell you is, do not be desperate when you go buy a car. I know it's hard, because one of those times that I bought a vehicle and got totally taken to the cleaners, my previous vehicle broke down, and I knew it broke down. I didn't tell them that, but it was basically sitting in a driveway. I got a ride to the dealership, and it was totally not functional, and I knew it was going to be thousands of dollars to repair the vehicle. So the problem is, if you go to a car dealer and your other vehicle has exploded or is totally non-functional, then the problem is you're subconsciously going to be trying to get it done, right? Because you want to drive away. They want to make you believe that if you just do what they say and sign what they say, then you will be cruising out of there in this beautiful new vehicle that day, right then. And it's so tantalizing to us to just do that stuff, just to make it end, to make the high pressure signing of documents end and get out of there and drive away. But you really have to do your best to not be desperate. So if you know your vehicle is on its last legs, start saving some money, and a few months before maybe you were planning, go start shopping then. And do not wait until it is dead, because you will absolutely overpay for a vehicle if your car is dead when you go shop for another vehicle. All right, next point. I want you to research ahead of time. Do not drive to a car dealership and just walk up and they're gonna be like, oh, how are you doing? Make the small talk. What are you looking for today? And you're just like, well, I don't know. I guess a truck, or I don't know. I'm thinking about that car over there. I mean, you can't do that. If they sense when you walk up that you really don't know what you're looking for, immediately, that's like the best kind of customer. The best customer is someone who doesn't really know what they want and they have money, right? Or they're maybe impatient and don't really care. Because then I can massage the conversation to get you to consider this one over here, which costs more money, because they all have 4 doors, right? But this one's got so many other cool things. It's got like a jack-in-the-box in the back and a swimming pool and laser light show. And this one's way better over here. But of course you don't need that amazing thing. You can get this one over here if you're really just trying to save money, And so if you don't know what you're looking for, you're just a recipe for disaster. So get online and research. And when I say research, I mean go look at the vehicles that are out there. If you're in the market for a 4-door sedan for a family car, then start looking at 4-door sedan family cars. And start ahead of time knowing what is the horsepower of this car? What is the horsepower of that car? If you're into electric vehicles, like I have 1 gas vehicle and 1 electric vehicle, then you need to start thinking about what's the battery capacity, how much acceleration does the car get? What kind of comfort is it? What are the reviews? Start reading reviews online so that you already know a lot about the vehicle before you show up. The salesperson is not going to try to educate you on the car other than the very basics of what it is. So ahead of time, you need to know 4-door family sedan, this is the top contender, this is the top contender. We were shopping for a minivan years ago. So you shop the Honda, you shop the Toyota, you shop the other brands, and I already know how many seats these things can seat. I already know what the warranty claims are because I've read the forums. You've got to do that ahead of time. If you just start driving to dealers, you're just going to get exhausted doing all this work, and eventually you're just going to buy something because you want it to be over. You don't want to be in that situation. All right, once you basically figure out, I want this vehicle or maybe this one, you narrow it down to maybe 2 different makes and models. Before you ever drive to any dealership, what you need to do is call them on the phone. You pick the 2 nearest dealerships to your house that sell the car that you're interested in because you've already narrowed it down. And you get on the phone and you ask to speak to their, you might call it an internet sales manager, you might just be called a sales manager. They're all basically the same nowadays. And you speak to them on the phone. You just explain to them that you are in the market for a vehicle. You're going to be making a decision in the next few days. You're going to buy a vehicle in the next few days. You're ready to buy, and you're just wanting to negotiate the price on the phone before you set foot in the dealership. And you say it just like that. There's no anger in your voice. You're not, I told you it's war, but you're not like being mean to them. I mean, they're just doing a job too. But you want to let them know that you're not just browsing. You're not just a person who has no idea what they want, okay? It's this model, and this is the one that you're interested in, and you want it to have, the leather interior, and you already know what you want, okay? You can't just say, show me the sedans, and, you want to be, I want the Toyota Camry. I want the Honda Accord, okay? I want the Honda Odyssey, and I want it to have leather seats, and I want it to have these options, and I want to negotiate the price. Now, what you do ahead of time is you're going to need to figure out what price to start negotiating at. So there's many websites out there that you should already have visited before you even call them. One of them is Kelley Blue Book. You just Google, invoice price of vehicles. There's many vehicles, many websites, Consumer Reports. There's other websites out there where you can figure out what's called the invoice price of the vehicle. That's the price that the dealership pays for the vehicle. Now, I'm putting it in quotes because it's always more complicated than that. There's lots of kickbacks between a manufacturer and a dealership. And so, it's not quite as simple as that. But to make it easy to understand, invoice, you can think of the dealership as that's what they bought the car for. Obviously, they want to mark it up to make some profit and sell it. In reality, it's not always so simple as that, but that's where you should start. And honestly, I would always start below invoice, maybe $1,000 or $2,000 below invoice. They can only tell you no. they're not going to hang up on you, believe me. Salesmen, they understand the game too, and they're going to try to work with you. And if they're that mean to you and call you a name, then just forget it. Go to somebody else. Like, you don't want to deal with them. But I would basically, ahead of time, know what the invoice price is on the Honda Accord with the leather interior with this horsepower engine. This is what the invoice price for this model year that I'm looking for, right? And then I would call the dealership and I would say, I am interested. I'm buying a vehicle in the next couple of days. I'm price shopping between your dealership and XYZ dealership over here. And I'd like to buy a vehicle from you. But I'd like to negotiate the price on the phone so everything is set before I even walk in the door. All right, that's what you do. Now, the first thing they're going to do is they're going to ask you, well, what's your monthly payment? What is your goal for the monthly payment? I'm going to say this about 10 times during this whole video because this is the number one thing. If I have you remember anything, do not tell them a monthly payment. Some people watching this video are going to have very strict budgets. It has to be $200, not 1 penny more because I can't afford 1 penny more. Fine. Do not tell them $200. Do not. Do not. Do not. Do not. I'm telling you right there, if you tell them, you lost. And I'll explain why you lost in just a minute. Okay? Also, do not tell them if you're trading in a vehicle. You're trying to give them your car, sell them your car to get credit towards the purchase of a new car. Do not tell them that. Do not, do not, do not. Number one, number two rules. Do not tell them monthly payment. Do not tell them if you're trading in a vehicle. You have lost if you do either one of those two things because they're going to hose you a few different ways. I'll explain why with numbers in a few minutes. Okay? A close third is do not tell them on the phone. Remember, you're not in the dealership. You're on the phone. Do not tell them if you're financing the vehicle at all. They're going to ask you straight up, are you going to pay cash for the vehicle or are you going to finance? Do you have your own financing? Do not tell them. I'm going to advise you in the video to already have your financing lined up with your bank or with your own credit union. I'll explain more in a minute why. But basically, even if they ask you, don't tell them. And I'll give you the answer now. You see, a salesman can make money. The dealership can make money a bunch of different ways. One way they can make money is to charge a lot of money for the car. Maybe the car invoice is $25,000. Maybe they charge $30,000 for the car. So you paid $5,000 more. They made money, right? But another way they can make money is if you're trading in a vehicle and selling it to them, well, maybe the car is really only worth, $3,000 or whatever, $5,000, and they really offer you $3,000 because they know they got you by the neck, right? And they know you want the vehicle and they know that you want to get out the door. And so what they can do is hold all variables constant, but they can lowball you on the trade-in. That's why you don't tell them to trade that you're trading it in at all. I'll tell you what to tell them in a second, but you never tell them that. As soon as you tell them that you're trading in a vehicle, then they'll say, okay, I'll give him the price he wants, but I'll lowball this trade-in and I'll do that later. Because I can't do that over the phone. He can't offer me a trade-in value over the phone because they haven't even inspected the vehicle, your vehicle you're selling them. So you don't tell them that at all, right? And the third thing is you do not tell them if you're financing at all with anybody because, you see, if they can get you in the finance room and they know that you're going to finance with them, then, or they suspect that you'll be able to finance with them, then they might say, okay, well, we'll give them the good price on the car, we'll give them the good trade-in value on the car, but we're going to totally screw them when we get into the financing room. It's very easy to do that. All they have to do is jack up the interest rate or extend the term of the loan, maybe out to 72 months or something crazy like that. And then you get your monthly payment where it needs to be, and you get a good trade-in value, and you get the price of the car where you want. You think you've won, but you've actually lost, because they knew that you were going to finance with them, and so they screw around with the loan, so you end up paying them more money over time. So maybe you think you won with a low price, but actually you're just going to give it all back to them over the next 7 years or whatever it is. Okay, so do not tell them you're trading in a vehicle. Do not tell them that you are that you're financing at all with them or anybody else, and do not tell them what your monthly payment budget is at all. Okay. So then you're going to ask me, well, what do I tell them? I mean, they're going to be on the phone. I say, hi, I'm Joe Bob. I'm interested in buying a vehicle, and I want it to be a 2000 whatever Honda Accord, and this exact configuration. and I want to buy that car. I want to negotiate that. First thing he says is, what's your monthly payment? What do you tell them? There's a couple of things you can say. You can say, well, I haven't decided yet, but that's a kind of a bad answer because it still tells them you have a monthly payment, but you just don't quite know what it is. Just say, honestly, well, I prefer not to answer that question. I really just want to negotiate the price of the vehicle. That's what you tell them. Say, I don't want to talk about monthly payments. That's not relevant to me. I want to discuss the total price of the vehicle. So that way you're not really lying to them, but you are telling them that you're not discussing monthly anything. You're discussing the price of the vehicle. How much above or below invoice are you going to pay? And then they turn to you and say, well, are you going to be paying cash or are you going to be financing? Okay, again, do not answer the question. You say, well, that's not relevant to what I'm asking you. I'm not asking to talk about financing. That's how you pay for the vehicle. I'm interested in negotiating the price of the vehicle. Again, you refuse to answer, but you don't do it in a ugly way, all right? You don't cuss, you don't be mean to them or anything like that. I'm not doing that, answer that. No, don't be mean. Just say, well, we're not going to discuss that now. We're way too far in advance for that. I'm not going to discuss it. You don't want them to know if you're paying cash or financing. Because if they think you're paying cash, if they think you're actually just going to write a check and, just give them money for it, then they might be less likely to work with you on the price because they can't make it up on the interest. If they think you're financing, they might do a little bit better on the price if they think they can make it up through the interest rate later. But you still don't want to tell them because it tells them too much information on ways they can hose you. So don't tell them. Same thing with the trade-in. If you tell them you're trading in the vehicle, the first thing they're going to do is, well, what vehicle do you have? And they'll start thinking of ways that they can lowball you on that. So you just basically say, you can either say no, you just lie to them and say that you're not trading in a vehicle, or you just say, well, I'm not discussing trade-ins. I only want to discuss the price of the vehicle. And so the answer to all of these questions is the same. If they say, well, how are you paying for the vehicle? Cash or financing? Well, I don't want to discuss payment. I want to discuss the price of the vehicle, the total price of the vehicle. That's all I care about. Okay, well, are you trading in a vehicle? Your answer is the same. Well, I don't want to discuss that at all. I want to discuss the price of the vehicle before I drive all the way up there and buy this vehicle from you. Well, what about your monthly payment, sir? Everybody has a monthly budget. What is it? I don't want to discuss payment at all. I only want to discuss the total price of the vehicle. So it sounds complicated, but the answers are the same. You don't want to talk about it. All you want to do is talk about the price of the vehicle. And I guarantee you, even if you feel weird saying that, they will eventually stop asking you that stuff and they'll start talking about the price of the vehicle. All right? Now, they'll play some games. They'll say, oh, okay, I'll call you back. I'll let you know, whatever. But basically, just say, this is the configuration I want. I know it's on the lot. I want to offer you $2,000 or $1,000 below invoice. So the number, let's say the invoice was $25,000. So I'm going to offer you $24,000. That's drive out price, totally none, inclusive of fees, tax, title, license, all of it. And and this is what you say, if you can hit that price, I will come buy that car from you today or this weekend or whatever it is. But we have to negotiate the price of the vehicle. And I want to walk in and you tell them this, I want to walk in, I want to sit down, I want to see this number that we're discussing on the phone, and I will buy this car from you today. But you need to also tell them, if the price goes up, if you've added things to it, if I walk in and the price is not this, I'm walking out immediately and I'll just go to the dealer down the road and buy the vehicle. Basically, you need to be a little bit ugly, but not really in a mean way. You just need to be like a robot, like you're in war. You have your armor on. You negotiate the price. I will pay you this. And when you finally, he's going to counter offer you. Well, we can't do that. That's impossible. I'll give you, you can pay $3,000 above invoice. And you come back and forth, and maybe you let him go off the phone and just politely say, okay, well, let's say you do $1,000 below invoice, and they come back and say, well, the best we can do really is $3,000 above invoice. And say, okay, well, listen, if that really is the absolute best you can do, I really appreciate your time. I'm going to let you go. I'm going to go price shop the other dealers down the road. If their price is cheaper, I'm buying from them. And you just tell them that. Hang up on them. Don't hang up on them. Politely let them go, and you go call and price shop the other dealers. You have to use the free market economy we have for price wars, basically, to get the best deal for yourself. So it takes work, but you don't do the work when you're sitting there. You do the work at home. So you call the other dealers. You do the exact same situation. Eventually, somebody is going to give you a price pretty close to what you want, Or somebody will start calling you back if they really want to sell a vehicle. Or if you've price shopped everybody in your area and everybody's telling you on this particular car, best I can do is $2,000 above invoice. Well, then if everyone's telling you the same thing, nobody cracks, you might have to accept that the demand for the vehicle is high enough where that is the fair market price, $2,000 above invoice or $1,000 above invoice. Once you figure out what that is, and it might take a couple of days of calling, playing phone tag with different sales reps, then for the one that you decide to go with, you basically tell him, all right, I like the price. I want you to send it to me in writing that this configuration, this vehicle will be this price, drive out inclusive of fees. You have to say that or they'll start adding fees on later. And if you have this price in the contract, when I arrive, I will buy that car today. I literally will drive there. I will buy it today. But if it's not this price, I'm going to leave. You need to tell them that ahead of time because their plan, most of the time, this has happened to me twice, they will lie to you and they will agree to a price in writing on email. When I say in writing, I mean in an email. But when you get there, they'll say, oh, well, that was just the price. I forgot. We have the VIN etching of the VIN number, and we have a license plate light, which lights up, and we have special coating on our tires, and we have a paint protection that's already applied to the vehicle. I forgot about that. Let me add all that up. Oh, yeah, that's another $3,000. Okay, if that happens, then mentally, you need to be prepared to just say, listen, thanks for your time. I told you I wasn't going to do that, so goodbye. And you leave. You have to leave. That goes back to point 1 or point 3, whatever it was. You can't be desperate. You cannot do this when you need a car today, or else you're hosed. If you're shopping ahead of time and you have a vehicle that works, you need to leave. They will call you back if they want to sell the vehicle. And you also need to be working with multiple dealerships because you might go right down the road to another one, the next best price. And you might tell them on the phone, listen, I just went to Joe Bob's dealership over there. They agreed to a price, but they started adding fees on and I walked out. If I drive to your dealership where you honor this price, not one penny more, yes, and if you say yes, I will come buy this car for you today. It'll be the easiest sale you've ever made. And that's what you need to tell them on the phone. Because if they know that it's the easiest sale they could possibly make and you're ready to go, then they're likely to play ball. In fact, if you get the right person on the phone and do it this way, and if you have the right person who's not playing games, then you can just ask them, please have the contract typed up. I'll sign it as soon as I get there, like with the price, the name, the address, like have everything written there. And when you walk in, everything's filled out, you read it, you check the numbers, and it's good. You sign it. I've bought a vehicle like that once or twice where I walked in, contract was written before I even met the guy, just on the phone. And I literally bought the car in 15 minutes, and I had to wait a little while for them to clean it and bring it around, but it was done very, very fast. That's the way you want to do it. But the number one thing I'm trying to paint for you is you don't want to go sitting in a dealership telling them a monthly payment. You don't want to walk up and say, well, I'm not really sure like what I'm interested in. What do you have? You know, and they're like, what's your monthly payment? Oh, I don't know, somewhere around $400 to $500 or $300 to $400 a month. Like that, when you give a range, it tells them you're flexible. They're going to try to massage you to the high end of that range, and they will screw you on the interest rate and on the terms of the loan, which I'll get to in a minute with an example, to fit that monthly payment and make you feel good about it by paying them more money over time. That's how they're going to get it out of you. All right, so let me make sure. Only negotiate the trade-in after the price and the interest rate's locked in. Okay, so let's say you really are trading in a vehicle. You didn't tell them. You just wanted to talk about the price of the car. Okay, so you show up at the dealership. You're ready to sign, and they have it all printed out, right? Ready to go. And then when the price is typed into the blank, this is the price, $25,000 even or whatever, $24,300 typed into and you know it's locked in on a contract. Then you say, you know what? I did decide. I do want to trade in my vehicle. That's what I want to do. Now, even then, it's not optimal. What you really should do is sell the vehicle separately if you can. Either sell it to a friend or family or list it for sale if you can, or go to some place that only buys vehicles like CarMax or there's Auto USA. There's a bunch of places that just buy cars, and you don't have to buy a car from them. Try to do that first because it separates the buying and the selling process. Okay, but you definitely don't want to tell them if you have to trade it in or if you decide to trade it in, you don't want to tell them until after you've locked in the price in writing on their contract. Because then you say, oh, you know what? I did decide I do want to trade this vehicle in. It would make it much easier on my budget. They're going to be like, well, wait a minute, we already filled this form out. And then you'll be like, well, okay, well, fine, but I'm trading it in. And if you don't want to do that, I'm going to go ahead and leave. I need to do that. And then you negotiate the trade-in of the vehicle. And you should also, ahead of time, know what the vehicle's worth from Kelley Blue Book or some other website that values vehicles. And you're going to have to know what the absolute lowest that you'll accept. And if they try to lowball you too far below what the Blue Book value is, then you're going to have to leave if you want to save money. But again, you should have a second and a third dealership you've been working with to make sure that you have someplace to go to buy that vehicle. And you could just tell them, if you're not going to offer me what this car is worth, I'm going to leave and I'm going to buy from Joe Bob's Dealership USA right down the road. Okay, another tip. You should, in an ideal world, if you're going to finance a vehicle, most of us finance vehicles, right? Get a loan for the vehicle. Then you should get that approved from your bank or credit union before you've even called them on the phone. Literally, call your bank or credit union, do an online application, take a few minutes. You'll get a pre-approval the same day, usually, for X number of dollars. Usually they'll say, we'll pre-approve you up to whatever, $30,000. That means anything under $30,000, you're pre-approved to buy it with this loan locked in from your bank or credit union. Now, this does two things. One, you have a way of paying for the vehicle that's not the dealership because they're going to try to screw you on the interest rate or the terms of the loan, right? So you want a backup plan. If they can beat your interest rate and such, then it's actually great. Sometimes it works out great that you have an approval from somebody else because then they will try to meet it. Remember, any money they collect in interest is profit for the company, right? So they want to finance it for you because they make money on the interest. So if they have to beat another offer, you show them the letter that says you're approved for this much and this interest rate, well, then they can then simply be forced to beat it, which can sometimes be really good for you. That's happened to me before. But the other thing it does is when you get approved ahead of time, it forces you to know what the interest rates are. You don't know how many times I've talked to people who are buying cars, and I went along with them, and they have no idea what the current interest rate is of a vehicle for new or used. Usually it's different rates. For new cars, it's lower than it is for used cars. So is the new car rate 2 or 3% or is it 6 or 7%? Like, you need to know that, because if you don't, you're going to get totally screwed in the finance room if you end up in the finance room trying to get a loan from them. So you have to do that legwork ahead of time. Call your bank, know what the rates are, get approved so you have it in hand, and then you'll know ahead of time what the rates are. Then, once you know what you're approved for from your bank, go to an online calculator. Just literally type into Google, calculator for car payments, right? That's all you got to type in. There'll be like 1,000 hits. Click one of them and you'll type in how much you're borrowing, $25,000, let's say, and what the interest rate is, 4.2%, let's say, and how many years of the loan. Usually 5 years is what I would recommend, 60 months. You can go longer if you need to, but you're just going to be in debt longer. I don't recommend it, but I guess if you have to, you have to. But type it in, and then it'll tell you what the monthly payment will be. And then you know in your mind, before you even walk into that dealership, you will know, okay, this car costs about $25,000. If I finance it at this interest rate, at this many months, the car payment will come out to about, let's say, $400 a month. I know that because I've calculated it ahead of time. Let me tell you a story. On that second car that I bought, or maybe it was a third car, I did that ahead of time, and I knew that if I financed the car, how much it was for this length of time, for this interest rate, what the car payment would be X, let's say $350 a month, okay? As soon as I get into the finance room, before I signed any paperwork, he said, okay, I've calculated it all, here it is, your payment's going to be $550 a month. I was like, $550, what? The price of the car was what we negotiated. How can the payment be so high? Well, the guy increased the percentage of the loan, of the interest rate. He increased it like 3 percentage points from like 4 to like 7, or maybe it was 8%. I was qualified for a lower rate, but he doesn't have to give me the best rate. He just put something down high to see if I would notice. And the only reason I caught it, the only reason, is because he said, oh, your payment will be $550 or $450 or whatever it was. And I knew it was wrong because I'd already calculated it. So you see, the common theme is, if you want to save money, you got to trade your time. If you want to get rich with math, you got to put in some time. So ahead of time, when you're not stressed out, drinking a glass of water, then you calculate the monthly payment. What is the interest rate? How much does this vehicle cost? What's the invoice? And then you know everything. And then when you walk in, if they try to pull a fast one on you in the room, you're gonna know immediately because you already know what the numbers are. All right, now while we're on the subject of the finance officer, it's a separate guy that handles the money and the payments and the contract of the interest and all that stuff. That person has two jobs, really. Job number one is to facilitate the loan and get you to agree to the terms of the loan and take as much money from you as possible in the loan process. But he's got a second job, and his job is to upsell you on extras. You see, there's this thing that they do. They negotiate the price. They try to gouge you on that, but if they can't, maybe they have to come down to something reasonable. Okay. Then they try to gouge you on the interest rate. But if they can't, because maybe you know too much about the interest rates and what you qualify for, or maybe you have your own financing, you don't even use them at all, well then they'll try to gouge you on your trade-in value. This guy's going to try to gouge you on that. We already talked about that. But if they can't gouge you on that, there's one more place they can try to gouge you. In the room, it's like you've been playing a video game and you're at the last boss, right? You got to defeat him and then you drive away in your awesome car. But the problem is this guy's telling you, okay, well, you know, there's also a paint protection plan that we offer and there's an extended warranty. And if you buy this extended warranty now, it's going to be half price. Now, you never know what can happen with vehicles, right? You don't want your daughter stranded or anything like this, right? So right now we're offering a special. That's what they'll tell you. You know, it's $2,000 for an extra 3 years of warranty. And it's a really great deal. And you can only buy it right now. You can't buy it after you walk out the door. Okay, everyone's different. If you have a lot of money that you can spend on this and you don't care and you actually do like peace of mind, then of course you can buy insurance. I have purchased insurance for certain vehicles, mostly on used cars in the past, all right? But the issue here is these insurance add-ons are basically designed on average to make more money for them than basically make more money for them. Think of it this way. They would never offer an extended insurance plan for you to pay X number of dollars for an extended warranty if it wasn't profitable for them. So that means on average, you're not going to need it. Yes, 1 out of 1,000 people will need it, or whatever the numbers are. 1 out of 600 people. Some fraction of people really will have their transmission explode, and they'll really wish they had that extended warranty. So I'm not saying it's worthless. What I'm saying is statistically, on average, they would never have offered it if they were paying out too many times in coverages. So on average, most people do not need it. That's what I'm saying. So if you're pinched for a budget, you have to get out the door under this, then just decline everything. That's what I do nowadays. I just decline everything. And I'm just playing the law of averages. It's possible the engine explodes later and I need the extended warranty. But on average, they would never have offered it if that's happening too often. So I'm going to go with the odds and say, all right, I'm declining that. So when he says extended warranty, I'm declining that. Extended paint protection, I'm declining that. VIN etching. That's when they etch the VIN number into the windows or whatever, into the metal somewhere. That's already done. It's not even a real labor cost. I would make them take that off and say, take it off or I'm not paying $300 for that. If you don't take it off, I'm just going to walk out of here. And you're just going to have to be ready to get up and leave. And it's hard when you're stressed out and you want to be done, right? But that's what you have to do because they're trying to add little things. If they add 3 or 4 little things at $300 each, then they've got another grand, another $1,000 from you. And then they've essentially done the job. They couldn't take it out of the price of the car, so they try to get it on the back end. There's lots of things that they will offer you in the end there. I personally decline them all. If you have lots of disposable money, go for it. But I'm just trying to give you the advice to save as much money as you can. And so far, I'm thinking about new cars in my mind when I'm talking about this. But you know, I've bought used cars many, many times, more times than I bought new car actually. And for used cars, it's tricky because there's no invoice, right? That's relevant. If the car is 5 years old or 3 years old, there's no invoice price you can look up easily. But what you can do is go to websites out there, just literally Google used car prices comparative or something like that. And there'll be lots of sites. There's Consumer Reports, there's other sites where you can type in the zip code of where you live and the make and the model and the year, and it'll tell you the average selling price of those vehicles in your area. Kelley Blue Book, other places like that. So you should know what it's worth when you're negotiating. But all the same rules apply. You call them on the phone, you say, I know you have this used car on the lot. I believe it's worth this. I will buy it from you today or whatever, this weekend, if you meet this price but not 1 penny more, and have them agree in writing with an email. And then you explain, if you are 1 penny more than this when I come in, I'm leaving and I'm just going to go somewhere else. I have another car that I really like down the road that's in my budget. I'm going to buy that one. And you have to basically make it a scarce quantity that they think that you might just walk out. And you have to be really ready and willing to walk out. Now, believe it or not, everything I've talked about now is an executive summary. So I have a bunch more bullet points that I wrote down that I want to quickly, rapid fire go through. And hopefully some of them will stick in your mind. And then I want to show you a concrete example with math. This is, after all, Get Rich with Math. I want to show you with math how they can play with the interest rate and the other terms to screw you without really you even knowing that you're getting taken to the cleaners. Okay, so rapid fire. Determine your budget. Okay, you got to decide for yourself what your monthly payment really is. But you do not tell them that, as I mentioned before. So you have to do that ahead of time. You can't decide that stuff when you're in the dealer. Research the car models. Already talked about that. Check prices. There's Edmunds, Kelley Blue Book, True Car, Consumer Reports. Do that ahead of time. Know the invoice price. Also, look up any incentives. A lot of dealers will have incentives in certain seasons, like a cash rebate. I had one dealer tell me, oh yeah, we can meet your price. No problem. Yeah, we can do that. We can do that. And how did they meet the price? I learned later that the manufacturer had a $2,000 rebate on the car. They didn't tell me. They don't have to tell me. It's in the contract, but the contract's 20 pages long. I didn't read everything. I was like young, right? So they didn't lose anything. So if you know the incentives and the rebates ahead of time, you can tell them, hey, I'm a recent college grad. They're giving $1,500 off for all recent college grads. But so I want $1,500 below my $1,000, which is below invoice, because that dealer rebate, that doesn't come from you. That comes from the dealer. So that doesn't count. So you have to know those things or they're gonna hose you and take it from you. Get pre-approved for financing, talked about that. Know the interest rates, already calculate the monthly payment based on that there. Trade-in value, look all of that stuff ahead of time, talked about that. And here's an important thing. If you can, try to time your purchase to be toward the end of the month or the end of the quarter. There's 4 quarters in a year, if you can. It doesn't always work like that, but if you can, they're more motivated because I have several sales people in my family, and they're always trying to meet certain quotas for the month. So if it's the last day of February, they're going to be a lot more motivated to sell the vehicle. So try to do that if you can. Okay. Here's another tip. Go in confident. How do you go in confident? Well, you got to know what you're shopping for. You have to know the interest rates. You have to know your monthly payment, but don't tell them. You have to know the value of your trade-in, but don't tell them. You have to already be pre-approved with another loan and know the interest rates, but don't tell them. That's how you go in confident. If you go in, I don't know, what do you have? Oh man, they're just going to show you everything and tell you how you have to have this vehicle because it is the best. And by the way, you can afford it because you already told me you're an attorney and you make a lot of money or you're a doctor or whatever. So, be careful with what you tell them. Bring a friend. Never ever shop for cars by yourself. Always bring a friend. It's just better to have somebody to bounce ideas off of, and you can also play good cop, bad cop. You can, be like, I really want this car, and then the friend can be like, you don't need that car, dude. There's the other, what about that other car at the dealership down the road? Like, you need someone in the front of the salesman telling you, let's just go check the other one out. And it's easier, harder for a high pressure situation to build up if you have a friend there. Test drive thoroughly, all that stuff. Get it checked out with a mechanic if it's a used car and all that stuff. You really have to try to avoid emotional attachment. The first car I bought, that one I mentioned I got taken to the cleaners. The reason is because I love that car. I wanted it so bad. It was like a kid who really wants a lollipop. I just wanted it. And for some reason, as you get older, you stop looking at cars as this thing you really want. It's just the thing you use, at least for me. I mean, I still love my car. I have an electric car now, and I have another gas car, But, I love it, but it's like when you're young, you just have the impulsive nature. You have to try to check it at the door, or at least try not to show it too much. Okay? Decline everything in the finance officer's room that they bring to you. Already talked about that. Generally, buying new cars is not the best idea. If you have disposable income, do it. But if you buy a car that's 1 or 2 years old, the car is depreciated a lot, but it's still statistically going to have a lot of life left in the engine, the brakes, the transmission, everything. So if you're really wanting to save the best money, buy a car 1 to 2 to 3 years old. After 4 or 5 years old, then things start happening. Brand new, you're going to depreciate immediately. When you drive it off, it's worth less. So if you want to save max money, buy something a few years old. Let's see here. Get competing offers. Walk away if needed. Man, how many times do you know that I actually walked out of a dealer with my friends or family, and then the dude is calling them on the cell phone because they get the number immediately, asking you to come back. We talked to the manager. We talked to the general manager. They're not talking to anybody, all right? They already know what they can sell the car for. It's all a game. This whole thing about, well, let me go talk to the general manager. That is just, I mean, in rare cases, okay, maybe it happens, but I'm telling you, I have salespeople in my family. That is not a thing. They already know exactly what they can sell you the vehicle for. All right, compare interest rates. Talked about that. Don't reveal your down payment. Don't tell them if you're even paying with a loan or not. Avoid all of the extra things they offer you at the end. Extended warranties, paint inspection, or paint protection, things like that. All right, now I've been harping many times telling you, do not tell them your monthly payment. And now I want to show you why. So I'm going to give you a scenario. You walk in, you haven't researched anything. You didn't watch this video. You don't know anything about, you don't know if it's 4% or 6% rates. You have no idea what you even qualify for because you didn't do anything. And then they ask you right away, what's your monthly payment? And you're like, oh, well, monthly payment, I want it to be somewhere around $400. That's my upper limit. And they're like, cha-ching, got it. I can make that. I think we can make that work. Okay, this is how they can hose you but still make you feel good about it, and you think you're saving money, but actually you're not. So you just told them that you want the monthly payment to be somewhere around $400. All right, so let's write down the scenario. Let's say that the loan is $25,000, right? That's what the loan is. The interest rate, right? This would be for a typical reasonable loan, let's say. The interest rate, 5%. Now, maybe it's lower or higher in reality where you are or whatever. What is the term of the loan? This would be what a typical fair loan would be, 48 months. That's 4 years you're going to be paying on this car, right? Payment, monthly payment is going to work out to, when you run it through a calculator, $552 per month. This is reasonable. This is not gouging or anything like that. So that's what it's going to boil down to. You're looking at this and you're thinking, well, I can't afford that. I told them that I wanted $400 a month. Okay. Well, let me see. This is what you total. This is the total paid. I'll do total. Total paid is $26,496. In other words, over 48 months, paying this amount of money. You're going to actually pay this much. Of course, this is more than the cost of the car, or this is more than the loan amount, because that's how interest works, right? You borrow a certain amount of money, and in exchange for that, you have to pay me more money back. That's what basically happens. How much more did you pay than the amount that you borrowed? Interest, that's what that's called. And in this case, you paid $1,496. So this is how much you paid. All right, now this would be typical. This would be what a bank would charge you. All right, this would be what a bank or credit union or whatever. All right, now let's say that you tell the dealership, all right, $400. I can't, 1 penny more than that. There's no way I can afford it. And they're like, oh, no problem, we'll work with you. Okay, so what do? They do the same thing. They say the loan is still $25,000. The interest rate is still 5%. All of that's the same. But what they do is they jack up the term to 72 months. All right, so that's like almost double, right? Almost double the amount of time, maybe not quite, but a crazy long amount of time to pay this thing back. So you're in debt for longer. And what is your payment going to be by doing that, by stretching it out? It's about $396 per month, which is exactly what you wanted. You want it to be underneath the $400 threshold. But what is the total interest paid, or the total paid in this case, is actually $28,512, which is of course more than what you borrowed. And so the interest paid, the total interest in this case, is actually $3,512. So you see what I mean? If you don't know what's reasonable and what's not reasonable, you think that you've won. Because if all you're focused on is the monthly payment, because that's my monthly budget, that's how I was for 20 years of my life or more, because all I thought about is, well, make this much per month, and so I got to have food, rent, whatever. I have this much money for car. That's it. I want to buy the best car that I can buy for $400 a month. But if you want to get rich using math, you can't do that. Right? You might need to buy a slightly less expensive car, or at a bare minimum, know what a reasonable loan is. When they kick it out to 72 months, you think that you've won because you are now paying less than $400 a month. Bingo, baby, I can afford it. But the problem is, because you stretch it out so long, I actually paid the dealership $3,500. That's almost $2,000 more. So you see what the dealership did? They gave up nothing. All they did is sell you the car, and you're going to buy it now because it's under your monthly payment threshold. But because you stretched it out so far, you actually pay them $2,000 more over the life of it. You pay them more money. So even if you negotiate, let's say you negotiate the price of the car. Let's say they were asking for $30,000, and you negotiated, you get it down to $25,000. And they're like, okay, I talked to my boss. We could do it. It's so hard, but we can do it. We'll do it. We'll do it. $25,000. Okay. But you have no idea about this financing stuff, right? And you're like, okay, 72 months, no problem, baby. I'll just do it. I'll work harder. I'll work for longer. I'll pay it off. But they're laughing because, yeah, they came down on the price of the car, but all they did was extend the loan out, and you didn't realize what's reasonable, or should you even have a loan that long? You don't know anything about it, right? And because of that, you pay them $2,000 more than you would have for a reasonable loan. If you go to a credit union or someplace reputable, this would be more of a typical loan, 48, maybe 60 months. Personally, I don't like going past 60 months just because you're in debt longer. You see, a vehicle for the first year or two is usually going to be okay, but you could have problems, of course, if it's a lemon or something like that. Usually it's going to be okay. But around year 4, 5, 6, definitely 6 or 7, you're going to start running into some problems. And your typical warranty that you get with the vehicle is a few years, usually 3 years or 4 years, depending on what it is, depending on what part of the vehicle you're talking about. But a few years, something like that. So once you're at year 4, 5, 6, you're typically out of warranty anyway. And definitely at year 6 or 7, you're done with the warranty. So anything happens, you got to pay for it, right? But see, then they also try to sell you that extended warranty in the closing room. So they lower the price of the car, they extend the term of the loan, making you pay a lot more for the car than you otherwise would have, and sell you the extended warranty because they tell you, oh, your loan, oh yeah, this is how long your loan is. Don't you want that extended warranty? Because, the basic warranty ends and you want to be protected, don't you? I mean, you don't want to be stupid. They'll try to make you feel unintelligent for not doing these things. But that's all part of the game. Ahead of time, you've pre-decided, well, I don't need an extended warranty if I get a reasonable term on the note. And if I have a reasonable term on the note at a reasonable interest rate and a reasonable amount paid and a reasonable amount of interest that I'm spending on it, well then if it's not under my monthly payment threshold, then I just can't afford the car. I'll just say that again. If it's too high, getting something reasonable, then you just can't afford the car. And that is the biggest lesson. And I was guilty of it, dude. Believe me, I was guilty of it. The first car I bought was a sporty little car. And I wanted that thing so bad. And the guy's like, you can afford it. And I'm like, well, I guess you're right. I can't afford it. I deserve it. But what happens is then after the first month or 2 or 3, it's just a car. And then you're just paying for it. And you never have any. When you have a amount of money in payments that is higher than you really should be paying, right? What you're doing is you're starving yourself from being able to invest that money in the future. That's the real problem. If you load yourself down with high fixed payments like car payments and also credit card payments every month. If you start thinking about credit cards as a payment I have to make every month, right? Charging too much. And then you buy a house or an apartment and the rent or whatever it is on the house, the mortgage payment is maybe higher than it should be. Well, not only are you just paying more of your money every month, but you're starving yourself of any additional money that you could then invest and grow into a true nest egg. Because the way any investing works, and I'll do separate videos on investing at one point. The way any investing works either in the stock market, in bonds, or even just a savings account or some CD that's earning interest, right? Just some interest-bearing account. It all starts very slow with exponential growth, and then it rapidly then increases, but the only way you can get it going is to have something to put into it. If you put in zero, you get zero out. If you put in $1 a month in, well, then you get almost nothing out, even after 50 years. But if you have $50 or $80 a month, or even $100 a month or more to slowly put into something that's earning interest, free money for you, then you shift the balance of power from paying somebody else all this money because they're just charging you interest for the privilege of borrowing their money. You shift it from paying somebody else all that money to you earning all that money. That's how you get rich quick with math, or I shouldn't say get rich quick, get rich slowly with math, right? Because it may be 6, 7, 8, 9 years, but then eventually you're going to reach middle age and you'll have a sizable amount of money that will continue to grow faster and faster and faster. You have to have, it's like a snowball, you have to have something there for it to grow, even with a healthy interest rate. So shift it away from paying other people and say, oh, I want this now, yeah. But the problem is you have no money in your monthly budget to put towards anything. And then you can't grow it into anything by the time you're in middle age. All right, so this was the first example. The way they do it is they keep everything constant, but they jack up the amount of months that you are paying the loan. Here is the second way that they do it, by jacking up the interest rate itself. So in this case, it was 5%, 5%, right? So let's change it and say, well, if you're the finance officer, I'm going to keep everything the same, but I'm going to jack up the interest rate. All right, so let's do that. Right, let's go right underneath and do that. All right, so we'll do the same thing. The loan is $25,000, same as before, right? The interest rate is, in this case, let's call it 4%. Maybe that's a typical rate. This is the reasonable column here, right? The term is 60 months. This is what I've typically done, sometimes 48, sometimes 60, right? And the payment, the monthly payment, whenever you have 4%, $25,000 borrowed over 60 months works out to be $460. Let's say that's the monthly payment, all right? So you need to look at the total. You need to stop looking at monthly. Start looking at total numbers. How much did you pay for the car, right? That's this number. This is the total paid. Total. Of course, it's not 25 because you paid all the interest. So how much did you actually pay? 27,607. That's how much money you paid for the vehicle. How much of that was interest? Well, you take this number and you subtract the 25,000. You paid $2,607. That's the total amount of interest. Okay, so this is the second way that you can get hosed. Instead of extending the term of the loan, what I'll do is I'll keep everything the same. Except I'm going to jack up the interest rate. So we have, in this case, it's going to be $25,000 loan. That stays the same. The interest rate, we're going to increase it from 4% all the way up to 8%. This effectively is what happened to me one time in the finance room. This is after you've test driven the car. This is after you've sat in it. That's after you smell it and you love it and you want it and oh, it could be gone tomorrow. And you're at the very end fighting the final boss and they're like, oh yeah, the interest rate's 8%. But they don't tell you that. They just put it in the contract. See if you notice, right? 8%, double of what a typical bank might offer you, right? The term, keep it the same, 60 months, right? And the payment works out to be, the monthly payment, when you work all this out, comes out to be $507. $507. And if you complain too much and say, "Ooh, that's too high," then maybe they come off of this number at the top, maybe $1,000, drops this 20 or 30 bucks to get it to 489. It sounds a lot better than 507, even though they're almost exactly the same number. So what is the total amount of money in this scenario when you've paid, right? Because for 60 months, you're paying this amount of money. So actually, you paid for this one $30,414. And so when you take this and you subtract the $25,000 value of the loan, you actually paid $5,414. $5,414. So you see how you got screwed here? Because you think, oh, well, I'm smart. I listened to Jason. I negotiated the price of the car, $25,000. Bam, baby, I'm good, right? But then you get in there and you have no idea what a reasonable interest rate is because you didn't do any work ahead of time. So they jack it up to 8% and they tell you this is what you qualify for. And at 60 months, that's what we're doing. And here it is. They put it right at $500, hoping that that's close enough. You told them 400 and then it comes back to 500 and then you start thinking, well, I don't know, can I really do 500? It's more than 4. Then they tell you, listen, hey man, I know everybody's got a budget, but $100 a month means just, don't buy soda or don't go out to Starbucks, it's a much safer vehicle. They can try to tell you anything to get you to believe that it's the best decision. It's got better rollover ratings, better safety ratings. It is a bigger vehicle. It's going to be more comfortable for you. You're going to carry all of your friends. And then suddenly you're thinking, okay, it's only $100 a month, but it's not $100 a month. It is $100 a month over 60 months. And that means you paid $5,414 more than what you borrowed. And instead of, in this case, that's basically double, more than double in the amount of interest that you paid. But the insidious thing about it is not just that you've paid this money, it's that you've starved your budget of additional money that you can use to grow your wealth. That is really the problem. And if you do that when you're 22 years old or whatever, 25 years old, and you live till 80 or 90 years old, or hopefully 100 years old, right? Well, then starting in the beginning of your life is really, really important. But building wealth is like lighting a fire. You put the kindling, which is a little tiny sticks and leaves or whatever, and then you light it. And then you put a little bitty stick on top, a little bit bigger stick on top, and then a little bit more and more, and then eventually put big logs on. It's a raging fire. Well, the problem is if you settle on something like this, when you really had a much lower monthly payment in mind, then what actually can happen is that you've sucked all the oxygen or sucked all the fuel out of your monthly budget. So you don't have any disposable income at all. And you don't have an emergency fund either, which I have to talk about because an emergency fund you have to have that in order to not be hosed for unexpected repairs. Like if your air conditioner goes out in your house, it might cost $2,000 to fix it. And you kind of have to have air conditioner where I live because it's really hot here. Right? But if you don't have an emergency fund, then you can't weather any storms at all. So that's another discussion for another day. If you starve yourself of this, you can't build an emergency fund. You can't invest anything in stocks, bonds, or in just an interest-bearing account. You can't have any flexibility and you're always underwater. It would be like being underwater, trying to swim to the top to get to the place where you can breathe, but you have weights around your ankles. So that concludes about everything I know about buying cars. Now, I'll probably turn the video off and I'll remember something else, but I think I got the main points. What you want to do is you want to not search and try to buy cars when you're desperate. You don't want to do it when you have a broken down car. You don't want to do it when your daughter's leaving for college in 2 days and you have 2 days to figure it out. You don't want to do that. You want to do it in a time when you want a car, but you're not desperate for a car. And then you want to do all the research at home. You want to know how much does that car cost? What has it been selling for? And then once you know all of that, you want to go to your bank. You want to get a loan already set up. So that forces you to know what the interest rates are. You want to know what your monthly payment will be. The bank's going to tell you that when they approve you for that, so that you know what is reasonable. You want to know what's in the black column, what's in the reasonable column here, okay? For typical rates of that particular year and month and all that stuff. And then after that, you want to call. Don't drive. Call them on the phone and say, you have this car on the lot. I want to buy that car from you. I would like to negotiate that price now, and then I'll come in and buy it from you. Just say it just like that. And they're going to say, well, what's your monthly payment? You say, well, I don't want to discuss monthly payment. I want to discuss the price of the car. They'll ask you, what are you trading in here? Are you trading in a vehicle? Well, actually, I don't want to discuss trading in anything. I just want to discuss the price of the car. Well, what about your interest rate or whatever else they may ask you? You just decline. What do you do for a living? Are you a doctor? I don't want to discuss my profession, man. I want to discuss the price of the vehicle. That's what you do. You want to be polite, but you want to just get to that number. When they agree on that number, which might take some back and forth, you might call several dealers in parallel, have them send it to you in an email, explain to them you're going to come and you're going to buy that vehicle. Have the contract written up for you so you can sign it and leave, and you will buy it today. But if the price is 1 penny more, you are leaving. And you go there, and if the price is 1 penny more, you have to leave. You have to. I guarantee you, he will call you back. They will figure it out. And then, all else fails, when you get into the finance room, you got to be ready and mentally prepared for them to attempt to screw you on these rates if you decide to go to financing with them, and also to offer you all kinds of upgrades that you don't need, decline them all, and I promise it may be a day of pain, but you will save money. And what you will do is you will free up money in your budget so that you can use it for other things. You can use it to build an emergency fund. You can use it to build a vacation fund so that you can actually have some fun in life and you're not always charging stuff to be able to do anything fun. And then whatever you have left over, you can save and invest it in safe ways, relatively safe ways, so that you can build wealth. So that's why I say get rich with math. So a little bit of a weird title, but honestly, understanding interest and understanding how money grows, that's probably the number one thing I think should be taught in all schools that really isn't. It really should be taught in all schools. So I wanted to make this video. I'll try to do a whole series, but I'd like to know, what did you think of this? Did you find it helpful or interesting? Did you like it at all? And if you made it all the way to the end, please drop me a comment. Go ahead and do it right now and let me know. What other parts of personal finance would you find fun to talk about or interesting? What would you like me to go investigate? I really want to find ways to use math to enrich everybody as far as building money, building wealth. So I'm Jason. Please let me know what you think. Drop me a line, and remember always, stay curious. Learn anything at mathandscience.com.